We are in the midst of a new era in the WWE. We are not in the Paul Levesque era either. And I'm going to tell you about it. So stick around and stay tuned for that. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up, that like button. Click the notifications bell so that you can stay up to date on hearing about pro wrestling from the perspective of an old head. Wrestling old head, you have entered the portal of pro wrestling. So let's get into it. This is not, from my account of what I am viewing in the WWE, this is not the Paul Levesque era. Although PLE has a ring to it, WWE does PLEs now, and Paul Levesque is at the helm, aka Triple H, at the Helmsley. You know what I'm saying? You know, yeah. Follow along.
Go fuck yourself.
Catch up with your boy. We are actually in the cinematic era. And this past Friday on WWE Smackdown, I felt deep within my soul that this is actually the first step of many first steps of showing us what WWE is going to look like, not only on Netflix, but across the board going forward. WWE is going to look like several mini movies that are going to run along one another in an episodic way. So for a while, wrestling has been kind of synonymous with like the male soap opera. That's what they would always say. This is like a male soap opera. It offended some, it embarrassed others. But the term, if you look deep and understand it, it's not as far-fetched as one would imagine. Female soap operas or daytime soap operas, things that get Emmys and stuff like that, the Daytime Emmy Awards and all that stuff, those were a bunch of mini storylines that all tied in together with an overarching theme, the theme of the show. Things like Young and the Restless, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, One Life to Live, you know, stuff like that that my mom grew up watching and that I believe still run to this day, although basic cable is pretty much antiquated. They still have their shelf life. They're still alive and they're still currently running, if I'm led to believe, on streaming platforms. So there's still an audience for these things, right? The WWE, I'm sure, is looking at those things and seeing what they can get in their version of that. Going on Netflix, a streaming service where basically the restrictions are being taken off and they can do whatever they want. They can experiment however they would like to. And they don't want to do too much too fast, but they definitely want to lean into it being an adult episodic television show, right? And you can see it. They're peeling away from that television aimed for kids, children, what they were doing in the last, 10 years or so, where they were really getting strict and they were really going and aiming for the kids again, because Vince always knew that was what he could do to build his future audience, was get them as they were kids, get them hooked as they were young. So that's when you had the New Day and John Cena and R-Truth and these guys that could aim at the kids, get the kids to fall in love with them. So then as you grow with the superstars, then you become a fan of the WWE by proxy. That happened about 10 years ago. Those 8-year-old kids are now 18. Those 10-year-old kids are now 20. Those 15-year-old kids are now streaming content creators that are doing their reports and reviews of the product. Are you following me with this? So now the WWE can grab those teens, grab those content creators, and plug them in to an entirely different view of the WWE, which is the cinematic era. And like I said, going back to the original point, what I was watching on Friday's SmackDown was not just a preview, but maybe the genesis of something that is going to be big for the WWE, going into Netflix and then going onto the USA Network, with SmackDown going 3 hours. It's a television show or a movie within the product, mini movies. Look at the Wyatt Six, look at the Bloodline, look at the Judgment Day. These are stories that if you start putting camera crews backstage in one. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed on SmackDown that I just have to speak about was when the Bloodline showed up and they super kicked and beat up the security guards when they were putting them through the metal detectors. That right there for me, I was like, that looks like a scene in a Die Hard movie.
Holy Toledo! Somebody had fun.
Even the line that Fatu said, anybody else want to pat me down or something like that? Like that right there and the shot, I was like, that's a movie. And then, of course, you saw the Chelsea Green backstage skit where she was, doing a skit in the neighborhood of Michin or something like that, or that was the illusion. And she was doing the dumpster because there's going to be a dumpster match or something. They're going to bring back the match that I remember, the last dumpster match that I remember, and there might have been more after this, but the one that really sticks out in my head was Chainsaw Charlie, a.k.a. Terry Funk, and Mick Foley, who was Cactus Jack at the time, against the New Age Outlaws in a dumpster match. The New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg, Jesse James, the Badass, Billy Gunn, they put Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie in the dumpster and threw it off the stage. So if they're going to do something like that with Chelsea Green and Michin, it's going to be interesting. But that's the last dumpster match I remember. So they were going to do that again, and they had this promo that was building up to that match with Chelsea Green. And it looked like a skit on a television show. And it was very well shot, and it was very well done. And then I think before that, if I'm trying to remember the chronological order of what I've noticed, because I don't have any notes in front of me, the chronological order of the way these skits happened in between the Chelsea Green and the Bloodline was Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns on the football field, and everybody has said that was cinema. And it was well shot, and it was well done. This was apparently produced by Jeremy Borash during the COVID era and before the COVID era. If you actually go back even further than that, TNA had done the compound match, the Hardy compound match with Matt Hardy, the Ultimate Deletion. Yes. With the Hardy Boy.
Delete.
And the Nobodies, I believe they were called, or Decay or something like that, which is basically Abyss and Crazy Boy Steve, and then Rosemary was a part of that as well. This was the start. Jeremy Borash was apparently a big influence in getting that type of a cinematic match on its foot. It was very much done like a mini movie. And then COVID happened, and then the WWE started embracing their cinematic match ideas. They had The Undertaker against AJ Styles, and they had Randy Orton against Edge, and that match went like 75 minutes or something crazy like that. They were kind of embracing the idea of doing these types of cinematic matches that are shot like a movie. They're pre-taped, they're edited together to cause to give the illusion that it's a full match that you're watching. But there were multiple takes. There were camera crews. This was done ahead of time. It was better for COVID. And now they were seeing what kind of reaction they got from that. And they're seeing if they can get more mileage out of some ideas like that. Roman Reigns, apparently, there was an interview with Bryan Danielson where he was talking about how during COVID he saw how Roman took the idea of what the future of wrestling was going towards and really embraced it and ran with it. Maybe not wrestling, but WWE, and I'm paraphrasing right now. But Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan at the time, he saw where Roman Reigns was going. He was like, that guy gets it. And Roman has apparently seen the forest from the trees and understood where the storyline progression, where the WWE can branch out and really separate themselves and become more entertainment with a little wrestling sprinkled in. And Lucha Underground, I mean, there's so many other influences that tried to do this, and maybe they didn't do it to the degree that they could have. Conan and Kevin Kleinrock, I think Kevin Kleinrock was a part of Lucha Underground. They had this idea of doing cinematic ideas, and then the matches would show up, and they were on Netflix as well, and then the matches would just show up, but the backstage skits and everything felt like you were watching a television show. And I fully believe this is that era. We are in that era right now for the WWE, and they're going to be doing this going forward. And there's so much potential that you can play with, especially with things like the Wyatt Six, with the Bloodline. You can really, really toy with this. Have backstage segments go beyond the arena. Go outside of the parameters of the buildings, of the headquarters. One of the things that I loved about ECW when I was first watching ECW in the 90s was when they did the Pulp Fiction video montage. It was Mr. Lou by Dick Dale playing in the background, and you got a series of interview segments, and the location was always something different for the wrestlers. It was Perry Saturn and John Cronus, the Eliminators, or New Jack and Mustafa, the Gangstas. They were out in the streets. They were in an alley somewhere. They were at a playground. They were in an, down the street. They were in the middle of the street. They were in a car. They were at some pool. They were at some resort. They were on some balcony. They were and they were cutting these promos. And it was so fascinating because in WWF and WCW even at the time, the parameters were like you're in the studio, you're backstage, or you're outside of the arena. So for so long, it seems like the wrestling has been restricted to just the confines of the arena, and they haven't been able to go out beyond that. And this is the first time that I've seen some wrestling companies outside of Lucha Underground, like I stated before, on a bigger scale, take advantage of the fact that there should be no limits. And it's fascinating that it was COVID and the restrictions that COVID had that more than likely led to the WWE fully embracing this because of the success that they had with their cinematic matches and where they could go with it. I mean, the Bray Wyatt John Cena cinematic match is the one that a lot of people really cling to, saying that it was extraordinary. And that could have been patient zero for the WWE at that point. Nothing had been done like that before. You were in the mind of the madman Bray Wyatt, and John Cena had been thrusted into the mind of Bray Wyatt, and there was some kind of a psychological warfare going on. It was a mind trip. It was like shrooms, but it was in a match. Fascinating stuff. And if the WWE decides to go forward with this, it could be huge for their product because look, okay, if you want to hear my review of Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, there were a lot of cheesy aspects. There were times where I felt like they were going to have a saxophone in the background and Roman was going to say, 2 days till retirement,
2 days to retirement.
Or something like that, It was definitely overdone in the cinematic factor. I mean, the lines that they were using could have been better. The realism factor could have been a lot better. It was like watching Fast and the Furious or Bad Boys at times.
Who that? Who in my house? I'm the devil. Who's asking? The devil is not welcome here.
But I like the idea, and I like where they're going with it. Like, if they start doing more of this, it could be huge, right? Like when I watched Bloodsport or Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, I always envisioned like getting introduced to a wrestler when he's at the bar and he's drinking and kicking some back and somebody tries to pick a fight with him. He ends up beating everybody out of the bar, and then he walks out of the bar, and then, somebody hands him a contract for the WWE, and he looks at it and he smirks, and then he gets in his car and he drives off, and then it says, coming soon to a ring near you or something, Like, I always felt like WWE would more than likely go to those lengths to separate themselves from normal professional wrestling, because they always said they were sports entertainment, and Vince always spoke about the fact that it was sports entertainment in his eyes. He never really liked to hear the word wrestling, but they never fully embraced the entertainment side. They never fully went Hollywood. And then WWE did the productions, WWE Productions, which was a film production. They started putting out movies. Then they started hiring television and film writers. So this has been in the works for a while, and now you're finally seeing an unraveling, a revealing of sorts of what they're really trying to do. And I think it could work. It could work on Netflix. I'm not sure if it could work on the USA Network, but we're definitely going to see, because we saw a preview of it this past Friday on Smackdown. And yes, and this is good for all professional wrestling to be like for real with it. Like, you know, like all professional wrestling is going to benefit from the fact that the WWE is going to try to separate themselves from normal wrestling promotions by doing it in a cinematic, episodic storytelling type of a way. And not all wrestling promotions need to follow suit. AEW, GCW, all of them can do their own thing and be fresh and not feel like they have to compete. And that's the beauty of it all. When I watch WWF Raw, WCW Monday Nitro was different from Raw for, I mean, a myriad of different reasons. I mean, WWF, they had outlandish characters and they had all this stuff. WCW had international stars. They had the legends of the past. They had an entirely different setup. WWF Raw was more small building, not as many lights. WCW Nitro was like big arenas, big firework displays and all that stuff. And when WWF finally started to follow suit, WWF was grunge and WCW Nitro was arena rock. You see what I'm saying? So there was these differences. And we can still see those things now, as long as any competing professional wrestling company knows that if the WWE decides to go this way and go full cinematic and start putting cameras out there and doing films where there's like car chases and there's like big action and people are going through windows and there's fights on location like barroom brawls and dumpster matches and things like that, that they don't have to try to compete with that, because you'll never beat them as far as their budget goes, as far as their production goes, or as far as their writing goes. But you can do professional wrestling the way that most people have grown to love, and it'll be okay, you know? And there's going to be another video where I talk about the differences between AEW and WWE in that regard and how AEW can really capitalize on this, but that's going to be for another video. As far as now, what I'm saying is we are in the cinematic era. Gear up, because it is only going to get bigger from here on out. You thought Chelsea Green's skit, you thought the Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns confrontation in the football field was something. Wait until you see what they do with the Wyatt Six. Wait till you see what they do with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. Wait till you see what they do when The Rock comes back. This is all a setup to show you exactly what they're going to do once January 2025 hits and the WWE debuts on Netflix. I'm certainly excited about it. I've been talking about this for months, since how I feel where WWE is going down that road. It was verified that we were going in that era when we saw Friday's Smackdown and we saw the skits, we saw the promotions, we saw the production going on there. We know now where the WWE is headed, and it's all full throttle from here, man. We just kicked it into a new gear, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. I hope you are as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this new era for the WWE, the cinematic era. Are you excited about this? Are you excited for the little mini movies that are going to be showcased throughout in between the wrestling matches for the WWE? Do you think that is the way to go? You guys let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, wrestling fans, stay tuned for more.